So yeah, the frantic, and we're live by the way, but the frantic trying to pack everything up and get
Yeah.
down here, and then I was afraid you were going to get here before me, and
Oh
I
no.
feel bad
And
about
even if
that.
I did, I would have just hung out with Riley.
Yeah, Riley does love attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Sorry, I know.
Cheers.
This is Natasha. Thank you for doing the podcast.
You're very welcome.
Good dog. I believe I sent you a couple of links. I don't know if you had
Yeah.
a chance to listen to
Yeah.
any of it.
And they're all, I just love how naturally conversational they all are.
Well, so then I don't have to explain the premise. And we
Right.
kind of covered that at the Ugly Sweater Party, I think.
Right.
Okay.
And the couple of links that you have sent, I liked that your guests were, I mean, everyone was very natural. And,
Yeah,
and you had a way of making everyone feel comfortable, like
Now,
like
just-
friends hanging out.
That's
So-
what it's supposed to be. It's not an interview. I'm just.
Yeah.
I think I even said it in some of the. She is so gonna knock that table over.
Riley, sit, lie down.
I try to make
Okay.
it conversational, and I'm like, look, we'd be doing if I was just visiting with
Yeah.
you or a friend, it'd be the same as if we were sitting at a pub or a coffee shop. It
Right.
just happens to be that there's a microphone in front of us. So
Exactly.
that's what it should be. So shout outs, proper credit to Chris and Alex. They were gracious
Woohoo.
enough to let us use their house, and this is Chris's studio, where she does her Third Times Me podcast, which Natasha has been a guest on that.
Yes.
That was a great
Excellent,
conversation.
Excellent podcast. Groundbreaking topics. You can't miss it. It's going to get really big.
Okay, how much is Kristen paying you to say that?
No, nothing.
that was oh my God, that was a great plug.
Well, I'm going to give you just as nice of a plug.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You don't have to. It's fine.
No,
This episode is about you, not me. So.
Oh, well.
I think the audience will find this if they're supposed to. But again, I do it because I enjoy it. And if it can help two people that listen to it,
Yeah.
inspire them to maybe, even if they don't do a podcast, but just inspire them to remember and give credit to or just thank the people in their lives that are important and appreciate the things that mattered to them and the good things that they had in their life. You know, internet these days, so much negativity going
I
around. So
know.
I guess I'm trying to spread some positivity.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And yeah, this is a good thing that you are doing, even if it helps just a few people. But I think that giving people the opportunity to tell their story in and of
Yeah.
itself is meritorious.
Because
you
who
know?
better can
Yeah.
tell their story but you? And without somebody a friend or a family member that might misinterpret something or might
Yeah.
not remember it right.
Right.
But there is something to be said for the person because then you get their perspective on it instead of just, again, reading about, oh, they did this and then they worked this job and then they moved to this
Right.
town. You can really connect with the person when you hear them talking about themselves,
Yes.
I think. So
Yes.
that's my theory.
Yes, I want to be as open and honest as possible. And
And
do I get to withhold my last name?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
this can be, and I was going to
Because-
say, we don't even have to do the video, but
Oh
no,
no,
you're
I'm totally fine with the video.
Yeah, you're just
I just-
Natasha. No, we're
yeah.
not going into details. And again, something else I always tell the guest: you talk about what you're comfortable with, and you don't have to talk about anything you're not comfortable with.
Well,
So,
I'll talk about what I want to talk about.
Perfect.
And as someone who's grown up very differently, I want to share a lot of aspects of that, and I just don't want my parents to hear this. So
don't worry, I don't have
Yeah.
any. I don't have any listeners, so you're fine.
I'm sure that's not true.
Okay, I think I think I sent you the Paul Young one, the author. I think that or my first one with my stepmom might be the most views, and even those are only like 100. So no, I don't
That's
have
a
hardly
lot
any.
of views.
Oh, you're
No,
too kind. Stop
no,
it.
No, that's freaking awesome. 100 views is quite a lot. That's for someone.
Well, it's not enough to
who's
get me
just starting
sponsored
out.
yet. I don't have
Hey.
any sponsorship money coming in.
Riley. Riley, down.
Down. Riley is the mascot of my podcast, which is called For Our Loved Ones. And whenever I'm lucky enough to record an episode here at Chris and Alex's house, Riley always makes an appearance. So
Yeah.
you are more than welcome, Riley, but you can't get on the couch. I know Mommy lets you get on this couch, but you can't get on the one downstairs. See how pitiful she looks.
I know. You can't help it.
Yes, you can. You're doing it on purpose. So yeah, I did listen a couple of times to your episode with Chris.
Yeah.
But you kind of started there. You mentioned that they're a unique background, a unique upbringing. So let's dive into it. Where were you born?
Pakistan.
Okay.
In the Himalayan mountain range.
So we've been pronouncing it wrong. It's not Himalayan. Americans screwing
Yeah.
another word up.
It's okay. I think it's adaptable to wherever you are. I say Himalayan. So Himalayan. Yeah.
Himalayan.
Yeah.
Himalayan. Okay.
Himalayan.
I'm
Or the
gonna
Himalayas. You know, when
Okay.
you're saying Himalayan, there's a bit of a bend to it, but the Himalayas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So born, and obviously I'll have to look at a map after we record this, but I'm trying to visualize. I know we're like Iraq and Iran. Iran is.
Yeah, Iran borders Pakistan from the south.
Pakistan is to the north. Pakistan, am I saying it right?
It's okay, Pakistan.
Pakistan.
So Iran and Pakistan share their southern borders together, and Afghanistan is in the middle.
Oh, okay.
So northern Pakistan meets China, Uzbekistan, all the other stands.
Okay.
It's a very geographically intense location.
I mean, geographically.
And it borders India on the other end, too.
Well, I was going to say, we can get into that later
Yeah.
also, but geographically and I'm assuming politically and everything.
Oh, my God.
There's a lot of stuff going on
Yeah,
there.
it's very politically charged, and that is just one aspect of the country. You know, there's so much more to the country than just its political atmosphere. And
Of course.
people, and obviously, with the way we're fed information, we only have like a one-dimensional view of what the country's about.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Right. And that's for any country from that part of the world. We don't really have much of an idea.
Yeah.
Where we're from, it's one of the most peaceful parts of the country. I mean, my grandparents were farmers in the mountains, and nothing ever happens there, even now. It's just like this secluded village.
So it is a smaller, you call it a village, a small town or whatever.
It's a cluster of villages all like 20 miles apart from each other.
Okay.
You know, a lot of my aunts and uncles and cousins still live there. They choose to live there. And now whenever I see scenes from back home, I question my own parents as to why they left, given how things are going now here.
Oh, here, right.
But what can you do? We're here now. So I have taken it upon myself to create some sort of change societally while I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way it goes. That's the story.
I don't want to fast forward and skip
No,
stuff. We can go
that's
back
fine.
to it. But
we can go at whatever pace back and forth. However, yes.
At what age did you move to the U.S.?
6 months.
Oh, so you don't have a childhood memory of Pakistan?
Well, not childhood, but sort of. I guess it is childhood. My earliest memories of visiting there, because I've visited on and off.
Right.
From the age of 7 till the age of 24.
Okay, so you have spent a lot of time there, even though you left at 6 months old.
Yes, like there are times I was sent there as a teenager.
Do you want to delve into why? That grin is giving it away.
Yeah, my parents thought.
Did you need to be fixed?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You were getting corrupted by the ugly American culture.
Right. So this was, between the 90s and the 2000s. I don't want to give away my age, but.
Well, you're like 22.
Right. Just eternally. They've had these ideas that if someone's going down the wrong direction, send them to Pakistan for a summer.
Okay, so you would spend 3 or 4 months at a time.
I didn't spend that long there, but I would,
months.
and they would come with me. I wasn't like always sent alone.
Right.
So there were times where they were there and we were there for a month, and that would expose me to a lot of just the contrasts of life between what we're doing here, what I'm taking for granted here,
Mm-hmm.
and the level of serenity and tranquility and the lack of want or need by those people. They're just so content with everything.
Because they don't have the all the crap fed to them
Yeah.
by the capitalist system
Right.
and the marketing and all that.
Right.
So it's they don't which that system. Look, capitalist system
Yeah.
has a ton of good points. So I'm not bashing anything. I'm not bashing America either.
Right.
But there are side effects
Sure.
of that.
Yeah.
Which almost the marketing and the whole capitalist system and all that, in a lot of cases, creates the perception of needs. You don't need that stuff, but
Right.
you're trained, you're
Right.
indoctrinated to think you need it,
Yeah.
and then you're never satisfied.
Right, exactly. I was blown away by that. There was just nothing screaming at you to get to the next level. There's
Right.
no one is telling you what to do with your life as far as like those agendas go. Like you go to school, you go to university. There are only two paths, science or art.
Really, it's that
I mean,
simple.
That was during my parents' generation and up till the point in the 90s and 2000. And then all the bigger cities, the more developed cities like Islamabad, Karachi, Lahore, those are all becoming, they are very modernized
Yeah.
now. So, and a lot of the influence from the West has gone there. But Pakistanis are really good at holding on to preserving their cultures.
And when you say science and arts, science is an umbrella that encompasses, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, everything, whether it's mathematics or whether it's
Right.
business or whether it literally is science. But you're going to have the science side or the artistic side.
Absolutely. My
And
dad.
neither one is put on a lower pedestal.
No, it's just all with exactly. These are umbrella terms, and this was during my parents' generation. My dad chose science because he wanted to be a doctor, and he became a
Okay.
doctor. And my mom went into English, and that was under the arts.
Yeah, of course. Right.
So that's how it was.
But everything was encouraged. You found what you wanted to do, and you weren't judged on it. It wasn't like looked down upon.
No, actually, my dad's side of the family, and I've kind of inherited this gene completely. We are a collection of rebels. My dad went against his family's wishes of him becoming an electrician.
Okay.
With nothing wrong with that. He wanted to become a doctor. And that no one in the family had ever had such big ambitions
Okay.
to become a doctor. And then here I am in America, and I'm like, I'm going to major in English and become an artist one day, so.
That's great.
Right. So I rebelled against him because he wanted
I see
me.
what you're saying.
Yeah, he wanted me to do one of the conventional careers.
And I'm assuming it was because, if you get that career, it's going to be a very stable,
Yeah.
lucrative career. It's in something you can live comfortably, obviously, and have a great retirement and security.
Yes. As much as I would have loved to have the aptitude or the inclination to be that conventional, I just didn't have that vein in me. I couldn't. I even, I started college in pre-med thinking that I would honor his wishes.
You actually tried
I
a
tried.
little bit.
I tried a little bit. And coincidentally, I was stuck with the hardest of professors.
That might have been a gift.
It was a gift, and then I was taking all these literature courses on the side as electives. I'm like, what am I doing? Intuitively, I was just getting pulled in that direction, in the humanities direction. And then I went to my dad crying, like, I can't do this.
At what age?
I was 17.
Okay.
I started
High
college
school.
early,
started
a little
college,
a little
okay.
early, because they didn't want to keep me on a regular schedule.
Oh, you had to be accelerated.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So I went to my dad in tears. I'm like, I'm trying so hard and I can't do this. And he's like, that's okay. You've tried. You're trying. I can see that. Just pick what you want to do, but be the best at it. And that's a
Right.
very South Asian thing to say, is like, be
Yes.
the best at it. Like, if you're going to be an actor, be like Keanu Reeves. You know,
Yes.
don't just be
Yes.
on a sitcom.
Yeah, don't be a
So,
working actor. You better be a
yeah,
star.
right. So it's like if you're gonna be an English major and I chose to do literature and journalism.
Okay.
And he's like, well, then you have to get on CNN one day. I'm like, oh God, there's even more pressure now. Why can't I just be ordinary?
I'm sure it was with the best of intentions, but yeah, parents can put pressure on that they maybe don't realize
Yes.
they're doing. Yeah, we skipped around a lot. Came to America when you were 6 months old, but then
Yes.
starting at between 6 months and 17 years, or going to college at that
Yeah.
17 years old, how many trips back to your home country did you? Was it like every year or two, or was it?
Yeah, it was about every year or two. And then it just receded because my brothers were born and my parents got busy and my dad had his practice and it was
Okay.
just, and I was already grown up and an adult and they just let go of their worries about raising an immigrant daughter in this wild country, you know? So I was just going to turn out the way I turned out. There's no controlling me. Uh,
A free spirit
Yeah.
and strong-willed.
You know, it took a while for me to realize that. I think they knew that about me.
Yeah, I think I
But-
remember some of that from Kristen's podcast.
Yeah, so altogether I think I've been back 5 to 6 times.
Did since you came here when you were 6 months old, did your parents, as you were growing up, did they make sure you learned the native language?
Yes.
So you're bilingual.
Bilingual, I can
Because you don't have an accent.
I don't.
I don't think, really. I mean, you have a unique voice, but I don't think it's an accent.
Thank you.
That was a compliment, by
Thank
the way.
you.
Sorry.
I do have I know I can read and write in Urdu.
Urdu, that's the
Urdu,
language.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's very similar to Hindi,
Okay.
which is the Indian language. They're both spoken, similarly, but the more advanced Urdu goes and the more advanced Hindi goes, they're just then you can see the differences
Okay.
in the language. But the basic tenets of the language are very similar, but they're written differently. So
Okay.
my parents, obviously, they were like, we need to instill you with the culture. So we hired you a tutor. In
Exhale.
addition to schoolwork, I had to learn from a tutor on how to read and write Urdu. And
So the tutor was for that purpose.
Yeah, it was-
not to help you with the American education stuff.
no,
Okay.
just for learning.
How hard? Gosh, how hard was? And what city did they land in? Where'd you grow
Yeah,
up?
so initially we were in Washington State, in Yakima, Washington.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not really. Yakima's fun, but it's like I can't imagine if that was the
was-
first place they
It was
landed.
the mid to late 80s. So
And that was the first place they landed.
Yeah. Well, no. Let me go back a little. The first place we landed was in Houston,
Hmm.
and that's where all my relatives are.
Okay.
And my dad was finishing up his residency in Seattle.
Okay.
And then he somehow got placed in a hospital in Yakima. So we had to go to Yakima.
There's a lot of I I like Central Washington. I like Central Oregon. There's a lot of fun things, but I'm just from the perspective of immigrants. I'm like, wow, that's your
Yes.
first impression of America.
My dad had been here a couple of years,
Okay.
and he was coming back and forth.
Did
from
he go
Pakistan.
to U of W medical school in
No,
Seattle?
this was a time when he finished medical school in Pakistan, and then he came here. I don't know what happened. There was some program that he enrolled in that he was able to just get his residency
Oh.
at the time.
Okay.
And then it was just smooth sailing from there. So,
Nice.
So that a lot of his credits were accepted, if I can speak of it that way. I don't know how this works, but this was, yeah.
Right. His prior
40 years
schooling
ago.
applied over
Yeah,
here.
his former, schooling applied at that time, and then he was able to get on his feet.
But so Houston for how long?
My mom and I were in Houston for
And
a
he
little
was
while.
up in Seattle.
Yeah, he was
Okay.
up in Seattle getting set up, and his idea was once he got the townhouse and the car and got settled, he would just make us move to Yakima.
Okay.
And I remember I mean, I was a baby, but my earliest memories are of Yakima, Washington.
So you were in Yakima for at least a few years to have some memories.
Yes, yes.
And then
Went to up till the end of middle school
okay.
in Yakima,
And then
high school and then we went to Houston
for high school?
for high school. Like my family moved to Houston because my mom got sick of being in Yakima and all of her family was in Houston. So also my dad was offered another position at another hospital in Houston. So it just made sense to move.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe the snow got to my mom. She wanted to be in warm weather.
Yeah.
It was just like this weird decision, and I was so against it because I just loved. I was a kid. I just didn't want to leave my friends.
To stay. Oh,
yeah.
right. You'd already established a social circle,
Right.
and it was familiar. And yeah, changing schools in a different city at that age is scary.
It is. It was.
But it was, as far as the whole point of that was when he found a tutor to teach you his native language. That was in Houston.
That was in Houston.
And I was just thinking, it was like, how hard was it to find somebody that could teach you that? I guess Houston's a big enough city. There's people.
It was it's very diverse and it's very massive. And there's a huge Pakistani South Asian population in Houston. And I mean, in high school and college, I was sort of friends with everybody, but there was a very big or a sizable South Asian population in both like high school and college. A lot of my friends from that time of my life are South Asian.
Okay.
It's just at the time it was easier to, as I was getting older, to be able to find some commonality and relatability with people of my kind.
Okay.
But then when you're growing into an adult and you're staying in this insular community, it just becomes difficult to exist because the rules haven't changed since the 1970s, since our parents moved here. And it became so hard to survive mentally and emotionally.
Okay.
That after grad school, I just was like, I need to leave.
And grad school was in the Houston area?
Also, college, grad school, all in the Houston area because, again, the rules were that you can't leave the city by yourself. I mean, I was in the dorms and all of that, but my parents had this weird idea that I couldn't leave or go across state lines.
Even once you're an adult?
Even once when I'm an adult. It was just a bizarre idea to them, even though we are moderate. We are not super strict or traditional.
Right.
But there was some layer of tradition and culture that they wanted, that they really were loyal to.
Did it have something to do that you were firstborn? Maybe, or I don't know.
I think so. There's that, and then there's status in society. In that society, that your eldest and your eldest daughter, your eldest child and your eldest daughter has to look good, has to make you look good. It's... Oh,
that's a thing.
That's the thing. It's inherent in...
It's almost a reflection on the family as a whole?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, my dad was like, unless it's Harvard or Yale or any of those schools, you can leave then.
Oh, my gosh.
But if it's just a middle tier school, you have to stay.
And I'm guessing at this point, they were... your parents or your dad, both of them maybe, were putting you through college? Were they funding it?
Yeah.
They get some say because they're paying for it.
Definitely.
Kind of a thing.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
There's that.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that.
Because at this point, I was about to ask, you're a friggin' adult. You can do what the hell you want. But then I'm like, well, if they're paying your tuition, they... right or wrong, they kind of get some say.
This is when I wasn't rebelling because they were funding my education. And I had jobs, I had a career before I went to grad school, but I couldn't fund grad school by myself. So
your undergraduate degree was in English?
English and journalism.
And journalism. And then...
graduate degree in political science.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Okay. Well, the story goes is that my first job as a journalist was... I was the staff reporter for a community weekly in my suburb of Sugar Land, Texas, and
Okay.
I was
I've actually
covering.
heard of that
Yeah.
town.
Yeah,
There's
so
a country band named Sugar Land. That's where
right.
they're from. Yes.
I've never heard of their music, but I know of the band.
Yeah.
I was covering City Hall
How and for Sugar Land, how
for
it's a
Sugar
it's a
Land.
suburb. So
It's
what's the
a s-
population?
God,
I mean,
that's a
like
good-
20, 30,000 or bigger?
bigger. I would
50,
say
100,000 maybe?
50,000 roughly.
But you were covering the
That's-
City Hall
oh,
politics of Sugar Land.
Sugar Land.
That was your beat.
That was my beat. Thank you for knowing that. Because when I say that City Hall was my beat, they're like, what does that mean?
What was that like? So you were nose deep in all the local politics.
Yes. It was really, at the outset, I'm like, this sounds so freaking boring.
I bet it wasn't.
It was not boring. People fought and came and argued about potholes and everything from potholes to the school system was just
Yeah.
this whole plethora.
Zoning laws, and
Zoning
building
laws,
permits,
yes.
and everything.
Yes, and I had this idea of, because I was annoyed with the flooding issue,
Okay.
and I took to my editor-in-chief and said, hey, I want to cover the flooding issue for the city. Like, I want to write about it. And get
So as a reporter,
Yeah.
you were able to go to your editor and try to pitch stories.
Yes.
Story ideas, and they would either say yay or nay.
Yeah. This was occasionally. Like, if I had a story, I could go tell him. Otherwise, he would assign me the story. And he was like, this is a great idea because it's really frustrating. We're
Okay.
flooded every other weekend right now. And that was a very wet season in Houston. And I wrote it. I gathered all these sources and interviews and quotes, and it got published. And then City Hall got mad.
Oh, did they? They didn't kick you off the beat, did they?
They didn't kick me off the beat. My editor was elated that this is the kind of attention we're
Dude.
getting from the city.
There is no such thing as bad press.
No. But there was this one time I went to, because I would have to go and listen in on the meetings and the hearings in the evenings. And one of the council members read a huge part of my article. And I could just.
And you were sitting there?
I was just like going down in my chair like this.
No, this is beautiful. You should have been going higher. Stand up proud.
Yeah, well, she was furious, and I was very young.
You were
and
young, yes.
And I didn't know what to do. I thought I was just in so much trouble.
This is a great story. I love that this happened. Because looking back now, you can appreciate it.
Yes. Yes. I
And
can
I'm
appreciate.
do you think she obviously knew who you were? Do you think she did that to make a point? She wanted to read it out and like stare you down as she's reading it? Or was her reading the article, was it making a point to some other business that was before the council?
I think her reading the article was that we've done enough about the flooding issue. There's nothing more we can do. Well, how
Okay.
dare this reporter write about this still?
Right,
So they were
right.
pissed off. They were pissed off.
Look, the reporter should be able to write about whatever the hell they want. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing something wrong, why would it bother you?
Exactly.
That's my theory. But
Right.
Why are you so defensive?
They were all really upset that day, and I just felt like, oh my God, I upset an entire city council.
Not many people can claim that. That's
Yeah.
awesome, actually.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. And she finished it, and you didn't get kicked off the beat.
I didn't get kicked off the beat.
Was there
but
any repercussions or pushback for the next 6-8 months or a year?
Yeah, well,
Like people would not
I
talk
got-
to you on the record,
right,
kind of a thing?
People gave me a really hard time. I was getting harassed at the job, like with phone calls and threats.
Anonymous stuff, I'm
Anonymous
assuming?
stuff,
Okay.
and it just freaked the shit out of me.
Yeah,
like
well, at that, you were
22.
22. Yeah, that
I
of
was
course that
just-
would.
It just freaked me out, and this one time my car got egged. Just like this was so bizarre.
They're freaking 5-year-olds.
I know.
And you're on this. I mean, I can't say that who it was. It might not have been city council, but somebody. Like, really? That's your level of maturity?
Exactly.
You're gonna egg the car of a 22-year-old girl,
Right.
who's just asking questions
Right.
about important issues.
Yeah. And so
Small-minded individuals.
Right. And in journalism, if you've spent about a year on a paper, you're okay to go on to the next job or the next paper. You know, it's just
Oh, that's kind of how the norm in the
yeah,
industry.
yeah, right. And I didn't at that point. I felt like I've learned what I could about being a staff reporter at a community weekly, and I feel like I've made my impression here.
Obviously.
And the next move for me was that had an impact on me. That whole scenario had an impact on me, and I thought about going to grad school.
Okay.
So, but before that, I was
Keep going.
yeah,
Sorry.
just making sure you're okay.
I'm old, so
Yeah.
I hurt when I move.
Yeah. Well, I was a stringer for the Houston Chronicle.
I don't know that term.
It's just sort of like a staff reporter, but sort of like a because I was in Sugarland, so I had to scope out all the stories.
Okay.
So you scope out all the stories and you bring it to the Chronicle division that's in charge of Southwest Houston, and they will approve of the story, or you write it and you submit it, and that's how it goes.
And that's the term a stringer.
A stringer, and
which
then
you're the one going out trying to find the stories.
yes, and then
Oh, so as opposed to the first job you had where you would find your own or they would give it to you,
Yeah.
they weren't giving you any. They were saying go find them for other
Yeah.
reporters, and if you happen to find one you want to do, we might let you, kind of a thing, or
Sort of. It's
Okay.
It's a step down, like, because it's a bigger paper. I had to work my way.
yeah,
up
of
there.
course. And I'm sorry, which paper was it?
The Houston Chronicle.
Literally the Houston Chronicle.
Chronicle.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I was there as a stringer for 6 months, and
Had your reputation? Did they know about your what you
I had told
accomplished in
them,
Sugarland? Were they
yes.
aware of that?
they were in my interviews with them in my
Okay.
job. It turned out to be like a great story.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Well, why don't you continue to cover Sugarland City Hall for us?"
Oh, because it is a suburb.
It is a suburb, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go back there."
But now you can go back with Houston
the
Chronicle credentials.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they gave me that, and they were like, "Well, we also need someone to cover the school board, the Sugarland School Board." So those were my assignments for a while.
All right. And you said you were only at the Chronicle for 6 months?
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, I just like to glance and make
That's
sure it didn't
okay.
stop recording or something. And then
yeah.
we waste a half hour talking and it's not
Status check.
on. Yes.
Right. So I don't know. I felt like it was time. I have these, visions of what I need to do next, and these are usually very measured and calculated moves. I don't want to say the word calculated, but like, how am I going to progress from here? Do I want to
Yeah.
be a staff writer at the Chronicle, or do I want to take everything that I've learned so far and, because grad school was always the plan. After my bachelor's, I wanted to get some work experience.
You just hadn't decided on what
Yes.
what you were going to take in grad school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because I was, at that time, going to grad school for journalism again isn't advised because you're ending up with the same classes. There's only one program in journalism. You take it for 4 years in college. It's the same program in grad school, so I didn't want to waste
It doesn't benefit you to
Yeah,
get a
I-
grad degree in
Right.
journalism. Okay.
Right. So I thought, because of, the way these stories impacted me about urban development, I thought, why not try out political science with a concentration in urban planning
Okay.
and public administration? And this was a very politically calmer time than now. Like, if I had to go do that now, I would never.
Jesus.
I would just go straight to art school.
Yeah. I can't imagine what the academic environment is, especially in that field in the colleges now. I can't imagine. I would strangle my
Yeah.
professor.
Yeah. So at the time, it was very appealing
Okay.
to learn more about this, and so I enrolled in Houston because I didn't really get to go anywhere else.
Because your education was still being paid for,
Yes.
so you had to kind of respect that a little
Right.
bit. Yeah.
Right, and it was actually a pretty good program that I found within Houston. And
Okay.
And maybe I wasn't just ready to leave Houston yet. So it just worked out for me.
How long was the grad program?
It was 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you working and going to school?
I didn't work during that time.
I
I
mean,
ended up going,
good.
yeah, full time.
Because grad school, you
It's-
need
it
time to
was-
study.
It was a very intense time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no life for 2 years. I was learning a lot about
It was literally go to class and study,
study,
go to
yeah,
class and study,
study.
and then try to find time to sleep and maybe
Yeah.
have a meal.
yeah, and then
Wow.
go wild on the weekends every now and
Of
then.
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So yeah.
Okay. You wild on the weekends. What your parents' culture? What is alcohol like a no-no?
It is a no-no.
Okay.
Islamically, there's no alcohol.
That's what I thought.
allowed, And
So-
I don't drink. I maybe
When you
did
say go crazy on the weekends, did you then?
occasionally.
Okay, but it
Very,
wasn't a
very-
big thing.
It wasn't like I didn't go that crazy. It
I
was
see.
just I just wanted to really make sure if this is my scene or not.
Okay.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, and you can obviously go out to the clubs and have fun. You don't have to drink.
Yeah.
So you just wanted to experience it.
And then this was also how I just stayed with my collective group of Muslim friends that, I am much more comfortable with them. I am much more myself with them.
Mm-hmm.
The grad school group was a diverse group of people, meaning all of us weren't Muslim South Asians. It was just that group of friends was white or Russian or, African. They were just from everywhere.
Okay.
And they would just go crazy on the weekends. So I hung out with them a few times. It was fun. But then after a while, I'm like, I'm feeling really out of place now.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this level of stretching myself.
You don't want to broaden your horizons
no,
quite that much.
I'm doing enough just by being in grad school. So this is a lot of cognitive overload for me.
I'm trying to learn stuff
Yeah,
too and
I just-
study.
I just want to hang out with my other friends and stuff my face with donuts on a Saturday night
Oh,
watching.
that's what you meant by going crazy on a weekend.
ultimately.
And then you binged some series.
Yeah,
Well, I guess you couldn't
right.
do it back then, but
Yeah, no. I mean, unless you waited for the Netflix DVDs, which I did for
right,
a while.
right.
It was, yeah.
Were you watching Grey's Anatomy?
No,
No.
I never watched. I stayed away from medical shows because
Of your dad.
Yeah, because he hated them.
Riley, no, down.
Sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah.
did you have did you do the grad school thing with political science because it just was interesting, or did you have an idea that once I get done with that, I might look for a job in that field?
Yes.
Okay.
It was more like the dream job at that time was being sort of chief editor of the City Hall division of the Houston Chronicle or Texas Monthly or something like that.
Because you had that journalism experience already. Okay.
Yes, that was the dream job. And what I realized even while in grad school and when I finished grad school, and I'm like, I was finding myself to be a much more creative spirit, and the parameters of working in these very, important jobs, but very dry jobs.
Right.
Was just like, is this going to hold me for a while? Like, do I see myself doing this long term?
Is it going to be rewarding?
Is it going to be rewarding?
Yeah.
And I just made myself do it because my dad was paying for my education. So I couldn't be like, oh, let's just fuck it.
Yes, finally, I get a cuss word out of her. You can curse on this, obviously. Is this the beginnings of your artistic side?
Yes, it is the beginning.
Because I was going to ask when that started. Were you doing it as a high schooler or?
I did do it as a high schooler.
Okay.
I was very much a writer and poet in high school.
I assumed you were a writer because you went into journalism.
I was a theater kid in high school. So
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a lot of Shakespeare, and that was a very big influence in my life. And I was writing poetry as a way of existential teenage angst, and it was very bad.
I'm sure it was amazing. Do you still have it? Do you still have your journals and your?
I do.
Oh God, that's the best. I'm glad you kept them.
Yeah, I still kept them. I mean, that's where I appreciate my dad, because I was like, I want to get rid of these. These are so bad. Like, no, your grandmother was a poet. You need to preserve these.
Yes,
It's like, no matter what you do in life, just keep in touch with that side.
absolutely.
So I really appreciated that about him.
And it's probably cool now to go back and read them. I mean, it's the genesis of who you've kind of become, right?
It
And it's
is.
nice to go back and see the origins of that.
Yeah,
And some of your first efforts, I guess.
definitely. And there's a lot. I mean, when I was studying Emily Dickinson, I mean, everyone studied Emily Dickinson in ninth grade. I felt so connected to her work and the way she expressed herself, and uh, that's when it started to trigger me, like
Okay.
even more. Like, I was a theater kid and all that, and I kept reading Emily Dickinson long after ninth grade, and I was like, I
When all
want
the other kids stopped.
yeah, and I wanted to write like this, and so I did, and it was a really healthy outlet to capture my rebellion at the time.
Okay.
And then in grad school, I just started writing again, like on the side, just very sporadically.
Poetry, just nonfiction, musings,
Everything.
whatever your thoughts
Everything.
were.
Yeah, it was just very rough, because
Okay.
I didn't want to give myself structure at the time. It was just, there was so much structure.
You
in
had
my
enough
life.
structure going to school.
Yeah, it was so
It was almost
demanding.
a release.
Yeah, I didn't want an intellectual demand on myself.
Right, right.
That I just started writing a story. It just evolved into a story. And I kept working on it, and I graduated from grad school, and I kept working on the story. And I was also working.
So out of grad school,
Out of-
what was the job you got?
I was a feature writer for Texas Monthly Magazine.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So you had a full-time job, but you're still working
Yeah.
on this story.
And
I
it
feel
was
like you're
just-
going somewhere with this.
Yeah, it
working
was-
on this story.
Right.
Okay.
So it was a freelance job, but full time.
Oh, okay.
It was like they gave me plenty of work because they kind of noticed that I was good at storytelling at the
Okay.
time. And unfortunately, there were no jobs at the Houston Chronicle for City Hall. the thing that I majored in, I'm like, okay, great. I can't go in there. And so I just applied everywhere, and then Texas Monthly got back to me. I started writing for them,
Okay.
and then I just the rhythm of writing can sometimes be very addicting when you love it, right? So I kept writing the story that I was working on,
Okay.
and it just turned into a short novella.
Right.
And so I decided to pitch the novella to publishers.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I worked on it, with a group of editors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still working freelance. And then it got published in 2012, but then it went out of print. The publisher went out of print 2 years later, so I don't have any record of the fact that I wrote a book. So
But you have copies of it, or at least one, I'm assuming.
there's a few copies in Houston. So
You don't have any with you here in
No.
Portland?
no, I don't.
So what's the...
It's just that once you've written and published, it makes you cringe what you wrote, and this was so long ago.
Why does it make you cringe?
Because there's so much I would change if I could go back and do. I know.
You know, every writer has that affliction.
Yes.
But they at some point you do the edits, you have people read it, and then they do corrections. At some point you have to let it go and put that work out there, and you're never going to be satisfied.
No.
I bet it wasn't that bad.
Well,
So
everyone.
what was the premise? Was it a fiction story?
Very thinly veiled. Everything that happened at City Hall in Sugarland, I turned that into a novel.
That's awesome. So you drew from real world
Yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
changed the names and locations.
Yes, exactly. I think psychologically I needed to process everything that happened at that job.
So Do you want to say the name of the book? You don't have to. I don't.
No, I'll pass.
Okay.
That's
But at some point, get a hold of have mom or dad ship a copy. I would love to read
I'm
it.
visiting Houston in the next few
Bring
weeks.
a copy back. I just want to read it. You can
Okay.
keep it. I just would like to read it.
I'll give it to you. I'll
That'd be
give it to you.
awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So this is why I don't script my podcast. You never know where it's going to lead to. My second published author on my podcast. You're the second published author I've
my
had. That's
God.
amazing.
Yeah, that's true.
I had no idea. I just knew obviously about your kind of where you came from as far as your culture, and then that you're an artist. I had no idea you had a published book. That's so cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So, working at the Texas
Yeah, magazine. The magazine.
and you've shopped this around, got it published. It was in print, but then you said the publishing company went under.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
bad time during publishing. This was when the Penguin and Random House merger happened.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of imprints just vanished.
That's right. And the only reason I know this is because Kristen it probably hasn't come up, but I do this authors event in Cannon Beach every April. And I run sound for it's an authors event. It lasts over the whole weekend. Like they'll have like 5 authors, and each of them will do a talk, and then they'll take questions. And it's a whole weekend event. But I run sound for it. It's hosted by my favorite author, Terry Brooks. But I've heard so many authors talk about this, and I remember at some point in some of the random panel discussions, Terry talking about that merger and what it did to the whole publishing industry.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like it was just sort of annihilated and rebooted in a very weird way.
It was like the grand reset, I guess.
Exactly.
Did it open? It probably took time, but did it create other avenues for independent publishers or independent authors that can find new ways to?
Definitely. Yeah.
But it probably was rough for a few years.
It was. And that was when self-publishing really took off.
Mm-hmm.
And, people like to bash self-publishing, but a lot of legitimate writers have come out of self-publishing.
Of course.
If you have the gumption to write anything and you publish it, there's merit in that completely.
And the people that are bashing it, is it just because the argument would always be, oh, you're just muddying the waters. It's an influx of crap, and it's hard to. Is that the argument?
Sure.
But so what? Let people
so
put
what?
out.
And fine, you may not have as quality production as a traditional publisher, but there's something to be said of taking that chance on yourself.
Because all of a sudden the gatekeeper, which was the editor, was removed from the process.
Right.
Now anybody could put their work out there. What's wrong with that?
And then
that's what we're doing right here.
Exactly.
I'm just throwing crap out on the internet.
Independent record labels,
Yes,
so many of
there's
the great
nothing wrong with
bands
it.
Published independently first.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of bad stuff out there, but there's going to be a lot of good stuff, and it doesn't matter. The good stuff will always rise to the top, I feel like.
I think that when you take that first step, you will achieve some kind of literary credibility, you know? And that was the whole argument at the time, is you're not going to be credible. I'm like, if you're just getting started, no one really thinks about, oh, is this going to bring... When I got the novella published, I didn't think, oh, I want literary credibility right now. I just wanted to freaking publish it.
And by the way, when you say you're not credible, who are the people sitting in judgment deciding if you're credible or not?
The editors at Random House.
Really?
Who the fuck cares what they think?
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean, whether it's movie or literary critics, 90% of the time the critics get it wrong. They pan something and the public loves it. They praise something and the public thinks it sucks. So the fucking critics or editors or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
God, sorry, I don't want to get fired up about that.
The literary critics is also, that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah. It's like, by the way, who anointed you to be able to set in judgment and decide what should be out there and what shouldn't?
Exactly. Thank you. I know. So there was that. There was a lot of that going on at the time. And now it's just standard practice and a matter of choice. If you didn't get accepted anywhere at a literary agency, for an agent to represent you, you can just self-publish. And, and there are so many editorial processes to make sure that your self-published book is good so that you can eventually get picked up by a traditional publisher. So
So it was a paradigm shift, actually. You had to go through some crap when that
Yeah.
merger happened,
yeah,
but maybe some good has come from it.
right.
Okay. So the job at the
Yeah.
monthly thing, publish your book. What happens next as far as career-wise, or moving, or getting a different job, or
Yeah, so I have to think about this. I stayed with the magazine for
after your book was published?
after it was published. I was really enjoying it.
Okay.
I didn't want to leave it. But a lot of things personally started to transpire.
Right, and what I was also the thought I just had was, now you're done with school, you have your own career. Now, are you starting to think, I get to make my own choices? Dad's no longer paying for college. I can do what I want. Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. And I think that a lot of what I'm about to touch upon next is I've talked about with Chris on her podcast.
Okay, we can do it again. That's
yeah,
fine.
that's fine. Well, I'm in my mid to late 20s. My parents are getting worried about something else, right? It's about my future, my marital future.
Oh, because in that culture, it's expected you
Yes.
would be married by now, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
And you just either had no interest, or maybe hadn't met a guy. It doesn't sound like that was a priority for you at that point.
it
I'm
wasn't.
guessing, but I don't know.
Well, I had experiences
Mhm.
dating, and then,
Yeah.
once you hit your early 20s, so here's the thing. There's a modern arranged marriage system in this culture.
Right.
And that's when your parents start introducing you to people, to suitors. And I was in the thick of that during grad school. And
So even though you were living,
Yeah.
and I'm not passing judgment,
No.
I'm curious, but even though you were in America, in Houston, this cultural influence was still it was affecting you.
oh my God. Yeah.
Go ahead. Feel free. I should stop interrupting you.
No, you're not interrupting me at all. I think you're registering things very quickly. So, I like that. It was one of the most toughest experiences of my 20s to go through that, to be put on this display unit
It kind of felt like that, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not dating a person, you're dating their whole family. They're dating your whole family.
Because both families are trying to be matchmakers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, there are actual professional matchmakers that your parents consult with for other matches. So I may have gone through like 28 people by the time I reached 30.
What did each match involve? Was it just like a meet and greet date, or would you try to date them for weeks or a month at a time, and then it did?
It was an interesting mix. It depended, like, there's a spectrum of families that range from traditional to modern. And my dad had a very strict criteria, like, not a strict criterion that, how do I put this, that he had a few points that he wanted conveyed.
There was a few boxes that needed to be checked?
Yes.
Okay.
A few boxes, but other than that, whatever. Like, it
Okay.
didn't matter what kind of family it came from, or where they're from, or even if they're living in fucking Alaska. So, as long
I
as
love when you curse. It's so cool. No, keep doing it. Because it is it's portraying emotion.
It is.
It's not random and gratuitous. There's a reason
No.
for the fuck.
It is, there is. So the first couple of years, or the first few times, it was just too formal, and my parents wouldn't be able to get a sense of who the people are, and I wouldn't be able to get a sense of who the guy is, and vice versa. And then after a while, after these first few meetings with these families, they're like, hey, why don't you just go out to coffee first and go on a few dinner dates?
Okay, I was just gonna.
Yeah.
I want to unpack this because I was
Yes.
like, when you're dealing with this kind of a situation, it wasn't like you just got to meet the guy and hang out. It almost sounds like you were meeting the family.
Yes, initially they would come over. So I don't know how many.
It seems so awkward.
I know.
sorry.
I don't know how many, or if you watched any movies or documentaries about this, but yeah, the you have to look as presentable as possible because everything is about appearances, and it's usually the man's family coming over to the woman's family for dinner.
What is there a vetting process that the families do before they try to match up the kids?
A little. It's just not very.
It doesn't sound organic or
It
natural.
doesn't. Yeah, it's not very, and it's not that whole process of vetting, like pre the in the before you even meet, is not even like set in stone. So if you hear about a family through a mutual friend, you reach out to that. The mutual friend reaches out to both parties and sets something up.
Oh, because maybe the mutual friend knows that, oh, this family
Yeah.
has a daughter that is of age,
Yes.
and then this family has a son that's of age, and oh, they might make a good pair. That's
Yeah.
kind of how it starts.
That's how it starts.
Okay.
And everything's an emergency, right?
Crisis.
Yes. If your daughter is single for another year, everyone's gonna die.
Oh my God, the world is going to
Yeah,
explode.
right.
There'll be a
Oh my
disturbance
God.
in the force.
Yes. Oh my God,
I
I
am
couldn't.
seriously sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of this.
No, please
Okay.
do. I love it because my future work has a lot to do with breaking these traditions
Okay.
and my whole life theme right now is rebellion against all of this.
Okay.
So I do want to talk about this, and I want to, express how I feel about it.
So let's go. Maybe
yeah,
go back on track.
back on
After
track.
grad school, you're done with school. There's no financial pressure there because he's not paying for college. You have a career, but at some point, and you publish your book. At some point, you're starting to. How dare you form your own opinions, and
Yeah.
have your own ideas about how you want your life to go.
Right. And this was a very confusing time for me.
Okay.
I was surrounded by people, my friends, who were just drinking the Kool-Aid, the cultural Kool-Aid of finding the match through their parents, or if they hadn't yet, they were just desperately waiting to be married. And
Male
settle down.
and female.
Male and female.
They both were kind of on
These were like very accomplished people. Like I'm probably the only one who didn't go to med school or law school or engineering school. They all went and got these high-end degrees, all these men and women. And then the minute they graduated, they're like, we need to get married now. Kids,
and that
tomorrow.
is just the cultural pressure and the way
Yeah.
they were raised. That was
Yes.
ingrained in them.
That was ingrained in them. There was no other route or possibility that they could envision for themselves.
Even though it sounds like they went through formative years in America,
Yeah.
I guess the way they were raised was still,
It was
they still
very-
had that in their head.
Yeah, the values, the traditions are very much alive as far as telling your kids what they should want.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's not exclusive to that culture. There's plenty of American parents that
Yeah.
put the same pressure on their kids.
Yeah.
Every country, I'm sure, Japan, every culture, parents are going to have expectations for their kids. But anyway, how did this play out for you? Because at some point you obviously left Houston.
Yeah.
But don't skip stuff.
I won't. I was introduced to the gamut of people through my parents, and
It's almost like your parents were running like Match.com for you.
yeah, they were, for one.
Okay.
And it was a harrowing time because I never felt so put down by other, like, strangers. If a family came to meet with me with their son, the feedback
It was like a job interview.
Yeah, it was like the feedback I would get would crush my spirits. Like, as far as my appearance or the way I spoke or the tenor of my voice or something or other, like, it was just absolutely bizarre.
Because everything was being evaluated?
Yeah,
That is not how you find a partner.
no, and I mean, I wouldn't do that to the person there. Like, I would just be like, okay, I don't know this person, and he's just sitting in my living room.
Oh,
and
that's
we're
fucking
trying
weird.
and we're trying to have a conversation amidst our families.
Which makes it even more awkward.
Yeah.
It'd be easier to go out for a cup of coffee and just
Yes.
talk to them.
So eventually, the approach shifted. So my parents noticed this. Like, again, they are moderate, not super strict. So they're like, why don't you go out to coffee or dinner or whatever you want, meet with the guy a few times, and then give us your verdict.
But it's still a kind of a match.
Yeah.
But instead of meeting with the family, they're going to say, "Oh, go out and visit him alone."
Visit him alone.
But it still wasn't somebody that you randomly met and were like, "Oh, I might be interested." It wasn't organic.
No.
Okay. How did that happen a few times where you went out and met somebody in person alone?
Yeah. There were a couple people that I saw long term that didn't work out in the end.
Okay.
And that, again, my parents, and this was just going toward like getting very close to 30, and my parents were getting very impatient. And
Jesus, it's not their life. I'm sorry.
it isn't.
Sorry. What do you don't get to be impatient
Right.
for your life.
Exactly. And you know what? This was a phenomenon that I noticed among all these parents, that it almost seemed like their livelihoods depended on us getting married as soon as possible and getting settled as soon as possible. And it's very irrational.
And I don't know that it was their livelihoods. It was almost the perception of the image of their family seems like what they were worried about.
Right. And the overarching message from them is that, well, we need to secure your future. Secure your future.
I have a graduate degree, and my future's fine.
Yeah.
I can get a job.
Stable. You need future stability. You need someone to take care of you.
Oh, Jesus. And you want a man to do that?
I
Men are the
know.
last person that should be making things stable.
I know. Seriously. And I'm like, okay, I see the point, but this is not how it works.
Yeah.
You know, like, look at the Americans. They figured it out. I mean, arranged marriages were a thing in American culture, or like white culture, or whatever this is.
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian culture back in the day, historically. And then it just didn't work out for a reason. And we here are trying to figure this out by sticking to it. And it's not working.
Yeah.
And as much as I try to understand their point of view, I'm like, you can't guarantee stability or security with anyone. It's not a guarantee with anyone, no matter what their background is. Like, and my parents had this naive idea that if I could just be married off to a doctor or a lawyer, that I would just be set for life.
Everything would be fine.
And now the number of divorces in the community of like super successful people is astounding.
Oh, yeah. Especially in this culture where there's so much pressure on the working world. Twist it down just a little. Like that. There you go. Perfect. Right. You were getting below it. I just want to make it. Again, I don't want to miss any of this.
No. Sorry
because you're getting comfortable, so you're starting to set back, and it changed your posture. No, that's perfect. Okay. No. Yeah, okay. Forget the mics there.
Okay.
You're doing fine. But
yeah.
So let's do a callback to the beginning of the podcast where we did talk about the difference in the culture of the village that your family's from, and how they didn't have all the wants and desires so there was a lot of good things about it.
Yeah.
Now we're just kind of talking about maybe one of the things they can work on. So I don't want to offend anybody, I definitely not judge. Every culture has its problems, and every culture has its good things. So I just want to recognize that we're not bashing anybody.
No, we're not.
But continue. At some point, you go through all this process, started doing the one-on-one meetings without the families.
Yeah.
You had some relationships, it sounds like, but it kind of always felt like a setup.
It did.
Which how does a true loving lifetime relationship start if it's a setup? I don't.
Exactly. I mean, there are a lot of couples for whom this worked out very well.
Okay.
Where they just felt like they met and it was a really good match and they fell in love.
Yeah.
Like that was how they were destined to meet.
Yeah, the odds are some are going to work.
Yeah, some are going to work.
Yeah.
It still works, but it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
One person literally was like, "Hey, I already have a girlfriend. I'm just doing this for my parents." I'm like, "Thanks. You couldn't tell your parents this? Are you
Yeah.
that batshit scared of them?"
Yeah. And by the way, you're picking up the check. So
Yeah.
if you maybe come here and meet you
Oh
just to
my
tell me
God.
that.
You're right. Oh my gosh. It's like I've never met a more scared group of men in this culture than I have met in anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's so surprising how scared they are of their parents, and the women are not.
That is actually interesting.
I'm not that scared of my parents with like in terms of stating what I need or sticking up for myself or saying no to something. Like I'm not scared of them, but
for some reason, the
the
men
men
are.
because they're doted on.
And they don't want to lose
They don't want to. Yeah.
they don't want to lose being doted on.
They don't want
They
to.
have theoretically they have more to lose by
Yeah.
upsetting their parents. Oh wow.
Yeah, they're esteemed. They they don't want to disappoint their mothers.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
all mama's boys.
So with that much esteem, you could almost maybe compare it to the English royalty. You know,
Yes.
Prince Charles.
Right?
There's or all the princes and stuff. There's so much esteem and dignity put on them that creates this pressure. Like shit, I can't disappoint them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
It's
Okay.
That is exactly how it is. So it was just not for me, and I knew that from the beginning. Like I
Okay.
think I had this feeling, this inkling that this isn't how it's going to work out for me.
What was the at some point you had
The trigger?
you just made a decision.
Yeah.
I got to get out of here.
Yeah,
I guess, or was it for a job?
It was no, it was very psychological.
Did you almost reach a point where you're like, I'm not going to progress as a person if I don't get away from this environment?
Yes, it became very oppressive.
Okay.
It was to the point that I became physically ill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
From the stress
from the stress
and
of,
anxiety.
and the uncertainty of what was going to happen to me, even though I'm like this grown ass adult in charge of my own life.
It almost felt like there was so much pressure being put on, expectations put on you that if you don't find a mate, and you're like, no, I don't, I got to get out of here because
Yeah.
that's all the feedback you're getting 24
Right.
hours a day.
It's a distortion of reality.
Yes,
Yeah.
the reality distortion field.
Yes.
Yes.
So, it's a weird part of the matrix.
Steve Jobs tapped into
Right.
it and he created shit. But anyway.
I know, and I'm just like, I need to unplug from this matrix. But-
And you were how many years out of grad school when this kind of happened?
Oh, this was
I'm trying to avoid making you say years because we don't want to talk about your
this
age.
is a few
so-
years. This is
okay.
a few years, like
Okay.
3-4 years after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're
I
living
was-
on your own. You have your
yeah.
own place.
Yes.
Have a job.
Yes.
And then at some point you're like,
I can't.
I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. All my friends have kids now, and they're
Oh,
all
so
pressuring
even your
me.
social circle
Yeah.
was changing, which was putting more pressure
Right.
on you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Jesus.
It was bad. Like, I mean, I could not, you know, there was still things to be grateful for, yes, but I could not imagine making choices there that would land me in a better place,
Okay.
because the cycle would have continued and I would have kept getting anaphylactic shocks.
Were
Yeah.
you was it almost you were almost feeling like you're becoming almost more isolated because your entire
Yes.
social circle
Yes.
their lives were progressing down this
Yes.
this path that you didn't want to go.
No, I didn't want to go, and at the same time, I felt like there was something wrong with me.
Oh no,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, I know.
No.
It was this was
right,
years-
but in the moment, yeah.
in the moment, and I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not built for this.
Okay.
I think my story unfolds somewhere else, and it wasn't until like the end of or the beginning of 2013 that every week from January until the day I left, I had a bout of anaphylaxis.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's not good for you.
No, and it was like I went to like 3 different doctors to diagnose, and they're like, we can't tell what's wrong. This is psychological.
Yes, which your mind has
Yeah.
a very big effect on your body,
Yes,
and emotional stress manifests itself physically.
it does.
Absolutely.
It does, and it did. And at that point, my parents just didn't know what to do with me. They didn't have to do anything with me. They were
But
just like,
they felt obligated.
yeah,
They want to help,
they want to help.
but they
And
don't know how.
yeah, and I was in touch with a guy friend here who was living in Portland, working at Nike at the time.
Somebody you went to school with, or
Just someone connected to my social circle, a mutual friend.
okay,
And I somehow got reconnected with him over just that springtime, and I was telling him what was going on.
spring of 2013.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was like, "You need to leave and, you know, think about Portland, think about coming back to the Northwest." And
Oh, right, because you
and
had the time in Yakima.
yeah, so he was like, my the lease to my apartment isn't over for another year, and I just got offered another job in San Francisco, so you can come and take over the lease.
Oh my gosh, how fortuitous!
I know.
It's almost like the universe was trying to
Yes.
throw you a fucking
Yeah,
lifeline.
like the universe was just speaking to me in terms of my body and like literally pushing me out of Houston.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's great. I will take you up on that.
What part of Portland was it?
It was actually not technically Portland. It was Beaverton because he
Yeah.
worked at Nike.
So you took over the lease as far as career job. I mean, were you still doing the
I was
journalism thing? Or?
I was just freelancing still.
Okay.
Just independent projects that I was working on through.
Did you find work up here though, or like what was your
Yeah.
first work up
So
here?
up here, I started working for a nonprofit,
Okay.
and I just not just I was in there. I was the marketing director for a nonprofit
Okay.
for a couple of years.
Okay. And you're in his apartment.
I'm in his apartment.
Did you end up staying there for those couple years? It's
Yes.
just you liked the apartment.
Yes.
It worked out.
It worked out really well.
Okay. How long did it take for you to decompress after making the move? Say you were here for 6 months,
Yeah.
and how quickly did the health issues kind of start going
They
away?
just went away immediately. I did not have anaphylaxis after that until
It's funny how that works.
until I went to France in 2018 for 2 weeks, and I had like a bout. But that's foreign pollen. I'm probably allergic to something in France.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's okay.
That can be a cool country to go to, but okay.
Yeah.
But so literally moving here
Immediately
helped your health.
Yes, I just had this mental health reboot.
It was probably just a release.
Yeah, it was so cathartic to be here. I just felt this weight come off
Yeah.
again, like this was actual reality. Like this is the reality I wanted, not the one that I left behind.
How'd the parents take it?
They were just
Well, I guess I should start by asking: did you try to explain to them why you were doing it, or
Yeah.
did you just say I gotta go?
both.
Okay.
It was a combination. It was more like I packed my bags. I was like, I'm leaving. And
Yeah.
they were like,
There's no
okay,
discussion here. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
I'm leaving. I'm done. I have to go. I have to
I have to heal.
Yeah, I have to figure out my own way.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, good
Good.
luck.
In a bad way or
In a neutral way.
neutral? Okay.
There were a lot of conversations. I mean, there was a whole thing with them when I moved here. Like, my mom at one point just panicked. Like, are you ever going to come back? I'm like, to visit? Yes.
Right. But I'm not gonna move back there.
I'm not going to move back there. And they're like, what about you getting married? I'm like, are you serious?
That's why I'm moving away. You keep
Yeah.
fucking trying to marry me.
You're right.
You had younger siblings.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that, but
No.
did they kind of just go into the cultural thing, or were they more like you?
I set the stage for them to do whatever the hell they
Oh,
wanted.
the firstborn is setting a bad example.
Yeah.
That's their story to tell. I don't want to go too far
Yeah.
into that. But anyway, you're up here. Things were immediately better. Beaverton, you stayed there for 2 years in that apartment?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Beaverton in that apartment for 2 years, and then the rent went up, and then I found a townhouse near there. I don't know why I was just so stuck in that part of town. It was just because of work.
Okay.
So it was just, I had to go to the office from there, so I wanted a short commute. I didn't want to, as much as I wanted to live in Portland proper, it was just not the wisest move at
But
the
now that
time.
you're the pressure is relieved, you make
Yeah.
that move. Did that also the move up here? Did it kind of enhance or free your artistic side? Is
Yes.
that when you started developing that and cultivating it?
Yes. That is exactly what happened.
Okay.
I serendipitously met my best friends here.
Really?
I joined a writing group the minute I landed here. I was like,
That's awesome.
this is how I'm gonna meet people.
Yeah.
You meet people by common
Did they meet at
interests.
Pal's Books?
Yeah, no.
I'm
I wish.
kidding. But
No, it was at this. So Cedar Hills,
Mm-hmm.
there's a Panera bread there.
Okay.
So there's this writing group would meet there because there's this area that has a really long table. So
it was perfect for it.
perfect, and it's nice atmosphere. Like it's quieter in the evenings. I showed up, and right away the woman sitting next to me, like I loved her writing, her story that she was working on, and I'm like, I'm gonna befriend this person. So we exchanged emails. We talked there for a while. We exchanged emails. I went home and then I emailed her right away. I'm like, do you want to go watch a movie?
I promise I'm not a stalker.
Yeah.
I just like you. I'm not crazy.
She's like, yes, let's do it. And we're still best friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. She's like family to me now.
So you joined the writing group.
Yeah, the writing group.
You were cultivating your writing,
Yes.
but at what point was the art?
You know, we kept the art came up alongside Julie, my best friend, who I just mentioned. She was also an artist, and
Okay.
she was working on her skills, and I really took from her just this whole aspect of I don't just have to be a writer; I could be an artist too.
Yeah.
Like I feel a lot of creative spirit brewing constantly, where I need to do different things all the time, and here she is making the most of both of her skills and she and I were kind of at the same point in terms of our writing journeys. And then she went on to get published in 2017. Her first novel got published under Penguin. So
the Evil
yeah.
Empire.
The evil, but not. I don't think of it. like this.
Sorry.
It's okay. But right, so that creatively, that's when it just started. When I started hanging out with the writers, the artists, they were all doing some kind of other art.
And very supportive. And that was kind of the
Yes.
energy you probably needed.
Yes, and no one was talking about marriage. No, there
You're
were.
like,
Yes.
the
no-
last thing on the talking agenda is relationships.
Honestly, if I can say this, I didn't want to meet people that were like my old community. I wanted to
Right.
get as far away from that as possible.
That makes complete sense, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
You needed a change.
Yes, I needed to change. I felt very much at home here. And then my next sort of major friendship happened the month after I met her. Was at the Portland Book Festival. At that time, it was called Wordstock.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, and I signed up to be a volunteer. I'm like, I'm gonna meet more people this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I met this woman who was my mom's age.
Okay.
We were volunteering in the same area, and we just started talking. I told her my story, and she was like, "I am so glad you're here. You're so fascinating, and I never want to let go of you." So
Not in a creepy way.
no. And then I went home, and then she emailed me. She's like, "Come
It
over."
comes full circle.
Yeah. She's like, "Come over for dinner next week."
That is so awesome.
Yeah. And she noticed all those things because she was my mom's age. She noticed all the things that I wasn't given. Not that I was entitled to things, but just in terms of nurture and
Right.
validation from a parent figure.
Right, right.
I never had that.
But she was picking up on the signs.
Yeah, she was picking up on the signs, and she noticed I was starved in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she just really took me into her family, and it's just and she's also still in my life, and
So this move to Portland reaped a lot of benefits for you,
oh yeah, it was.
which is obviously why you're still here, I'm
Yes,
guessing. But
exactly.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm so glad this has a great not a happy ending because it's not over yet, but
No.
I like how your story has progressed. Um, at what point did you? I want to talk about this, especially since we're at the Third Times Me studio. But when did you move into the building that my daughter was in?
In late 2021.
Oh, so was she there before you? Because I think she came here November of the pandemic and stayed with
No.
Alex. Is that right? Or 2021?
No.
No, it was 2021. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we moved in a month apart from each other.
Because she moved in there January, February or
Yeah,
something?
2022.
Of 2022,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I had
Yes.
been there about a month, and
Okay.
I walked into the laundry room.
What floor were you on?
Third, the same as her.
Oh, but down the hall?
Yes.
Because you'd have to go up the stairs, and her apartment was
Yes.
right there, and you were down the hall.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But you tell the story about how you met her in the laundry room.
In the laundry room.
Were you yelling at her for leaving her clothes in the dryer too long? I'm
No,
kidding,
we
I'm kidding.
I noticed that she was new, and we said hello, and I just started talking because I could maybe sense that I wanted this
Yeah.
connection in the building, and
Yeah.
I was very excited to talk to someone in the building, and
Because up to that point, had you not really met anybody in the building?
No,
Yeah.
I wanted to, and I came at her with all this extroverted energy. I'm like,
You
hi,
were like right in your face.
what's up?
We're gonna be friends.
Yeah.
So when she lived there, I was there a lot actually because she made some out of town trips. So I would dog sit, of course. So I spent a lot of time there, and then I helped her move in. I would just come visit. But it was funny because I did notice. I think everybody in the building were females, if I remember right.
At that time, yeah.
At that time, and then there was literally no interaction. The vibe I got every time I would go there, and I spent a lot of time there. I'm like, y'all don't socialize with each other. It's not like a neighborhood.
I know. It didn't. It still doesn't feel like that. But now that I'm about to leave, I'm actually so happy that I'm leaving.
Right.
I can't stand my neighbors right now. They're this very obnoxious couple.
Oh, Jesus.
And I don't want to get into it. But
no, we don't have to. But thank God you're getting out of there.
Yeah, getting out of there. Just going a couple blocks down.
So I guess the point I was making was it didn't seem like a very social building. Even, a lot of that probably had to do with the after effects of the pandemic. Everybody was scared to talk to somebody without a fucking mask and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
I remember when she first moved in, I was like, oh, I got to put a mask on to go up the stairs to her apartment.
That's so
So that
stupid.
probably created a barrier to some social interaction, but also it might have just been the people that happened to be living there were in their own little bubble and didn't want to interact.
No.
But when you just felt an energy from meeting Kristen in the laundry room, like she's actually open. I could talk to her.
Right. And then she told me that she lived in Texas and all this stuff. And I'm like, yes, connection. We have another connection. I'm also from Texas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then she gets you on the podcast.
Yes. And I told her to start the podcast. I was like, if you don't do this, I'm going to make you start this podcast.
Oh, wait.
A few days after that laundry room, the fated laundry room, we went out to dinner.
Wait a minute. 22.
And it was 22. She started it in 22.
Yes,
it's been 2 years.
she started it on her 30th birthday because I was there. Remember, I did the first
you did
episode.
the first
I'm putting the years together. So she moved into that apartment right before she went to Central Oregon for her 30th birthday.
Yes.
And she had met you?
Yes.
Now, this all comes full circle. Now I understand why she had a bug up her ass to start the podcast on her 30th birthday. It was you. It was your fault. I'm learning so much. Yeah, because she made a point. I want to record my first episode on my 30th birthday, and we did it with her brother Michael. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Yes.
It's your fault.
It's
This
my fault.
whole Third Times Me shit is your fault. I'm kidding, but
Credit goes to me.
so
I'm a troublemaker.
we can thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
you're
Natasha,
welcome. You're welcome.
for lighting a fire under her ass. That's the last thing she needs.
Aw. She needs it.
But anyway, you meet her, and like your art, I know that I've seen it because now that we're on Instagram,
Yeah.
it sounds like it looks like you've put together like a studio space in your apartment.
Yes, sort of. It's just sectioned off. Like the dining table became the art table.
Okay.
There was no other way to not keep working that little section. The art just sort of grew and took on a life of its own when I got married.
When were you married? Okay, we're gonna go another hour.
I'm
Okay.
not married anymore.
I picked up on that, but yeah, we apparently skipped a part. I guess that's because I made you go from 2013 to 2021. So
yeah.
you met somebody here in the Portland area and got married.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been married. I do it as often as I can. So I support marriage.
Well, the next time
I think it's a great institution.
the next time I am, I hope to just stay married.
Right.
So,
That's the goal.
yeah, I don't have another not working out situation.
So,
in me,
I'm sorry.
So, no, it's okay.
Is this something you don't want to talk about? You don't have to.
We can touch on it. It's just
just
it's
touch on it.
related to
Okay.
the art.
Okay. Go.
You know, I slowly progressed into the art journey while I was having a day job career, where a lot of kind of the writing just fell by the wayside. I wasn't really writing as much anymore.
Okay. So that slowed down.
That slowed down. And I honestly just wasn't feeling it for a while.
Right.
It's just not there. The spark wasn't
So don't
there.
force it.
Don't force it. I did work on a novel while I was here, and I'm proud of what I've done for it. It's just not anywhere near
Completion.
And then recently, I merged both. Like, my goal by the end of 2023 was to develop a graphic memoir chronicling my 10-year journey in Portland. And
Through images.
And kind of like so picture a comic book, but like a book, but not
Right.
comics, but in my artistic style.
Right.
So I did that and I finished it.
But you're going to tell the story through images.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's also words.
Okay.
There's also written chapters.
Right. Okay.
So my main goal in 2023 was to work on a graphic memoir, and I did that. But anyways, going back to, I guess, 2016, 2017, I was just exhausted, burned out from writing so much or working on the novel that I was just not seeing the light of day in, and having to work day jobs and marketing and nonprofits. And I was like, I just want to focus on something that feels exciting and joyful and more in tune to where I'm at right now in my journey.
Okay.
And so and Catherine, the woman who I met as a volunteer at Wordstock, she's an artist.
Okay.
My life's biggest influence, my life's biggest teacher of art, all credit goes to her.
To Catherine.
Catherine.
So let's give her a shout out.
Yes.
No last names, but we're going to give her a shout out.
Shout out to Catherine. She's my other mom. She's the mom I never had. So I learned so much about art and not having to need permission to be an artist, because I didn't go to art school, and I kept having the story like, hey, you went to grad school for political science.
And that's because of the way you were raised and grew up. You almost felt like you had to justify why you want to do this.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't have to. And
Okay.
she broke that. And I just started drawing. I just,
pencil and paper?
Just
okay.
sketching, lots of sketchbooks. And then right after that, I was just really inspired to do watercolors. And that was the time I met my ex-husband.
Okay.
And my watercolor journey was kind of going alongside this new person in my life. And
American kid. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
White,
so it wasn't from your
the
culture.
whitest boy I've ever met. Yes.
What did you just say?
The whitest.
The
boy.
whitest boy. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
there are a lot of those in the Portland area.
Yeah.
They're fucking white boys.
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But yeah, it was kind of a happy time. We were getting along great,
Mm-hmm.
and my art journey was evolving while still having day job. I mean, I've always had a day career,
Right.
and I've always done art at night or art on the side. And it, when I got married, uh, 2 years after that, he got a job in Tacoma, Washington, so
Okay.
we had to move.
Okay.
And this is now pandemic time.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we had been married for a while. So, yeah. So 2020, I'm stuck at home. I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. And it just.
And you're in Tacoma of all
Tacoma
places.
of all places. And I just. Art. Art was,
Yeah.
I was living and breathing art.
Yeah.
I was posting on Instagram and it was doing well. And then I started getting commissions.
Explain that.
that
I
is-
think I know what it means,
Yeah,
but for
for-
the 2 listeners I have,
For the 100 listeners,
whatever,
a commission is when someone hires you for art.
to make a specific piece of work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or they buy a print from you.
Okay. Okay.
You know, or like I should say commissions, and I was selling prints.
You were making sales.
I was making
And
sales.
people were also hiring
Mm.
you to say, hey, I would like to have a portrait in this room in my
Yes.
house.
Yes.
And this is what I want. Can you put something together?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So my right off the bat, I was getting like, organizations reaching out to me.
Thank God for the internet.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Thank God for Instagram for that.
Yeah.
Forest Park was one of my first assignments.
Wow. Right
Yeah.
up the road from the apartment.
Yeah, exactly. I had to make a logo for them, so I did.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and so that just like.
But that
triggered-
happened when you were in Tacoma?
Yeah, that happened when I was in
That's
Tacoma.
funny. That's random. You
It
ended up
is-
living there.
And I wanted nothing more than to just move the fuck back to Portland.
You weren't
I-
happy in Tacoma.
Not at all.
Obviously, during the pandemic, it sucked.
No, and my husband was working from home, and it was just changing our dynamic completely.
Way too much time together.
Yeah,
I kind of make that as a joke, but it's a real
it
thing.
really
If you're both
was.
working from home, Jesus.
I mean, up until that point, like we realized how much space we were giving each other.
Yeah.
But when that ended, and I don't want to say that the pandemic ruined us. It was just it was like a whole list of reasons why things didn't work out.
Okay.
But that was when the art journey really, I started to get committed to it. And I started getting assignments and commissions, and I was making sales. And I was also, again, working for another nonprofit there. So by the end of 2021, it's October of 2021, we decided to part ways.
Okay.
And that same week, Pioneer Square reached out to me for their holiday campaign.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, it's time to go back home. It's time
That
to
was
go.
that was another sign.
That was another sign. Like all of my big assignments, all my big commissions were coming out of here.
Wow.
No one in Seattle hired me for art.
And you were, 30, 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And obviously, so the marriage mutually
Yeah.
decided to end it. And is that how you ended up back in the apartment next to
Yes.
Kristen? So when you met her, you were just out of a marriage. Oh my gosh, coming back to Portland.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, a wounded.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you were in a place.
I was in a place.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in a place. I mean, I didn't expect to be divorced
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
because I was taught, or like I've watched parents who've been married all their lives through the worst of each other.
Yeah. And you can touch on this. Don't share too much, but I'm assuming obviously you told your parents that you met this guy and we're going to get married. How was that received?
That was received like a blessing at the time. I mean, so just so we're clear, I'm still laying the path way for them to know completely that the marriage is over. I've had to do it in doses and.
Okay, then we don't have to dive into that, but they're not they don't necessarily know everything that's going on.
So, at the time it was a blessing because I was well into my 30s and like, what the fuck is she doing? Lost cause.
She's finding herself is what she's doing.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I know. Someone tell them. Someone tell them.
I get them on. I'll set up a Zoom meeting. I'll set up a Zoom call with them, or I'll just send them this podcast link.
Right?
No, I wouldn't.
No one died of mediocrity. Not that I'm saying that I'm
That's a
mediocre.
great quote. I love that. No one died of mediocrity.
Yes.
There's still time. Maybe somebody will.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, you're spoon feeding them updates on your life.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we went to Houston together, and he met my family, and everything went really well.
Yeah.
And my parents were just beside themselves with joy, like, and they had already understood that I was going to be with someone
out of the culture,
out of the traditions. That's still my goal for whatever's next for me.
Right.
I'm not going back to the culture ever.
Right.
It would be very hard.
I don't think I don't think that'd be good for your mental health.
No,
Yeah.
it wouldn't. Like, that's just not an option. But at the time it was great, and then they visited Portland, and they met his family, and it just worked out.
What worked out?
Like, just the whole situation worked out at the time, in terms of approval. Like, my parents.
Oh, right. But I mean, have they? So they haven't been back to visit you since the divorce?
No.
Okay.
No.
But you're in regular contact with them. Obviously, they know you're doing fine. And
they know I'm doing fine, and now I just have to get to the hard part. And
so now that you mentioned that both of your younger siblings also did not follow the cultural path, do they know what's going on with you?
A little.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you haven't shared everything.
I haven't shared. I've been waiting to be ready for it.
Are they still in Texas?
Yeah, they're both still in Texas.
Okay.
They
married, kids, all that stuff?
No, not yet. Neither.
I'm sorry, you said they didn't follow that path.
Yeah, they didn't, and they're taking their time. And one of them might be close to marriage, but we'll see. I told them never to pressure themselves and to take their time, and and so anyway, that's their life now. So
you've gone on quite a journey, and it also sounds like I think you touched on this at the very beginning. You have I don't want to call it a mission, but you have some information you kind of want to get out there. You're talking about maybe changing the norms of your culture.
Yes.
And are you kind of trying to find ways to make that happen?
Definitely.
Different avenues you might be able to get the information out there?
Definitely. It's interesting that you're asking me this right now, because this group of people, I guess tech investors, I was put in touch with to come up with this idea.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is going to take off, but they requested a proposal, and they thought, like, the mutual contact thought that I would be a good person, a good candidate for this. And it's like, this idea is to build a multimedia platform, an editorial platform about...
Almost like Substack, something like that?
No, it's kind of like a... How do I explain it? So I'm thinking of this as an online publication.
Okay.
That's like part New Yorker, part, the Paris Review, part BuzzFeed-ish.
Okay.
Something like this.
So, I see what you're saying. So there could be digital content that involves audio podcasts, video podcasts, but also there could be journalism on there.
Journalism,
Multimedia. All
multimedia.
types of things. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and I see it being writing forward, like editorials. But the main concept is Muslim rebels. Like,
Okay.
as in like, not just cultural, but I'm trying to create this point of identification that's not just South Asian. So, majority South Asian is Muslims. And
Mm-hmm.
the main theme here is rebellion, because that is what I've chosen. That is what I've had to choose. That is who I've had to become to create changes and help others be released from these strict traditions and rules that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So the main theme is rebellion and self-connection and self-understanding without putting down the traditions and culture.
I was just gonna say, and I'm just spitballing here, and I have obviously don't have the background or the context that you have in this. It did strike me though. Is there a better word than rebellion to use?
I don't want there to be, because
Okay. And that's what I'm asking. There might be a reason for that word
there's
choice.
a reason, because I identify strongly with rebellion, and given how we have worked so hard, how Muslims have worked so hard to be honest about their image as Americans.
Yeah.
For decades, we've been trying to educate the West about who we really are, and we're trying to do it as politely as possible.
And it's
it's
not
just,
necessarily working,
it's
or
not
or at
working.
least it's not progressing fast enough.
No, and we're being pressured to be nice and explaining who we are and justifying our own existence.
And you shouldn't have to.
And shouldn't have to, like, take a look at whatever is going on right this minute.
Yeah.
Like, a group of people is being decided on whether they get to live or not.
Yeah.
And this hit me recently very hard in terms of how do I bring myself forward in the context that I've created for my life, despite my identity. Like, I am not ashamed of being South Asian. I'm not ashamed of being Muslim, but despite my identity, I have rebelled against certain norms certain rules that needed to be broken.
Yeah.
And I'm probably not the only one who's done this.
I guarantee you're not.
So I want to build a community that involves people like me who've broken the rules, so that the West can slowly understand us who we are, with more relatability, more radical honesty, and really see us for who we are, instead of us trying so hard and struggling to communicate who we are through constant, we're not terrorists, or we're not so-and-so, we're not that.
Yeah.
And we need to demonstrate who we are. We need to act who we are.
So it might be time for a more emphatic expression.
Yes.
And by the way, I wasn't trying to be critical.
This pertains to artists and creatives.
Okay.
Not like this is the parameter, because I'm an artist and a creative, and I want to highlight others who are rebellious artists and creatives, like, who've chosen their rebellion in a healthy way to express.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't trying to be critical. My instincts as a person are always to massage things through, but sometimes
I like this though.
But sometimes massaging doesn't work. Sometimes, metaphorically speaking, sometimes you have to hit somebody over the head with a fucking 2x4 to get your point across.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
So I've titled this project "I Discover Myself."
Okay.
And that's from Walt Whitman's "I Discover Myself on the Verge of a Usual Mistake." And
I haven't heard that expression.
Yeah.
Is that a book or just
it's in Leaves
quote?
of Grass.
Okay, it's a quote. Okay.
Yeah, it's in his poem "Song of Myself."
Okay.
And he's one of my biggest literary influences. So I discover myself on the verge of a usual mistake. That has been my whole life.
I discover myself on the verge of a
usual
Oh my
mistake.
God, I can so fucking relate to that. That is the story of my life.
Right?
Oh my God. That is so appropriate. Wow.
Me too.
So where are you at? You probably can't give details, but I
No.
mean, it sounds like you have an idea and a concept for this. but you need to present it to these maybe angel investors or whatever.
Yeah, and who
Okay.
knows how they'll take it, but this is something that they're
But it's also
looking.
something it sounds like you could do on your own.
Yeah, I could do it on my own.
You have the platforms now, so
We do. Yeah.
that's awesome. Let me just thinking about this because I hear, oh Jesus, we've been going for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I want to. We need to do another one. We have so much to talk about, but I also don't want to take up too much of their
That's okay.
hospitality.
Yeah, we can do another one.
But this is a current project. You're
Just started. And
right.
it-
Just
yeah.
started. But you're also. Are you able to? You're able to. Your art is your livelihood now, right? You don't
Yes.
have to work for a nonprofit right now, or are you?
Well, I'm still doing freelance projects.
journalism?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
For some
Well,
local.
it's now marketing and copywriting mostly for uh, different clients.
But all this you can do from home,
All the-
obviously.
yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
you have 2 gigs.
Yeah. Yeah, the art comes also as a part of the freelance now.
Oh, you've been able to mesh that.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have so much more we could talk about. Judas
Definitely.
Priest. When are you moving into the new place?
Sometime within the next couple of weeks, my
Okay.
final I have to move out by February 4th. So
Okay.
I'm,
But you already have a place. You're just kind of waiting for it to be ready.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a pickup truck, so
Thank
if you
you.
need help moving,
Thank you.
let me know. I'd be happy to come over. I hate those gosh damn stairs. Me and Kristen calls him Uncle Craig, but our friend Craig, we moved her into that gosh damn place. Can't they put an elevator in there?
I don't know. Like, I am so dreading that part.
But I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
If it's if I'm a day off or whatever, yeah, let me know. Reach out to me, and
Thank you.
my truck has studded tires on it, so even if it's snowing, I can come help
Okay,
you.
perfect. Thank you so much for helping.
Natasha, this has actually been a really amazing conversation, and we should do more.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for all 2 of my listeners.
No.